There's a version of silence that doesn't mean you've run out of things to say. It means you've decided not to say them. Not out of weakness, not out of indifference, but because something inside you has decided that speaking would cost more than staying quiet. And if you recognize that feeling, this video is for you. Picture this. Someone says something that lands wrong. Not an obvious insult, something subtler. A dismissal disguised as a joke. A boundary crossed so casually you almost second-guess your own reaction. You feel it immediately, that sharp shift in your chest. But instead of responding, you go still. You nod. You maybe even smile. And inside, something folds inward. Not because you're fake, because your nervous system has made a calculation faster than your conscious mind can catch. It has decided, this is not safe to express. Most people think this means you're too sensitive. It usually means something else entirely. What you're experiencing isn't a personality flaw. It's not being bad at communication or avoidant in the way that word gets weaponized. What you're doing is a psychological adaptation, a sophisticated, often unconscious, strategy your mind developed to protect something important. And once you see what it actually is, you stop feeling broken about it. You start seeing it as something closer to a hidden strength that's been misread your whole life. The first layer of this is something researchers call emotional pruning. Your brain, particularly if you grew up in an environment where certain feelings weren't safe to express, learned to do this thing where it trims the ones that caused problems. You had a big feeling. It wasn't received well, or it intensified a conflict, or it made someone pull away. Your brain recorded that. Not explicitly, it encoded it in your nervous system like a background process. Now, when emotions that used to get you hurt start rising, there's a kind of early warning system that kicks in. It doesn't announce itself, it just closes the door, quietly. And you've learned to trust that impulse even though you can't explain it. But here's where it gets more specific. When you go silent after being hurt, it's rarely about the other person understanding you in that moment. Here's what most people miss completely. It's not about being understood. It's about being seen, and then having that observation used against you. Your silence isn't withdrawal, it's preemptive defense. You're not shutting down because you don't care. You're shutting down because you're trying to prevent your vulnerability from becoming ammunition later. You know this feeling. Someone does something that hurts, and your instinct isn't to confront, it's to quietly remove the part of yourself that could be hurt again. You make yourself smaller in a way that doesn't look like anything from the outside. You just go quiet. You retreat to a room inside yourself where the rules are different, where no one can find you, where you don't have to perform being okay while you're not. And this is the part most people miss. Your silence isn't passivity. It's actually a form of emotional labor that takes enormous energy. While you're sitting there quietly, you're doing about 17 things at once. You're monitoring the room, reading shifts in tone, calculating how much, if you speak, will make things worse, managing the physical sensation of whatever you're feeling, and also running a background process that's asking itself, is this person safe? Is this environment safe? Can I exist here without being diminished? That's not nothing. That's not passive. That's a nervous system working overtime to keep you from getting hurt again. There's another layer to this that doesn't get talked about enough. Sometimes you go silent not because you're protecting yourself from the other person, but because you're protecting the relationship itself. You know that if you say what you're actually feeling, it'll come out harder than you mean it to. It'll sit raw and unfinished. and part of you has already decided that maintaining the connection is more important than being understood right now. So you swallow it. Not out of cowardice, out of a strange kind of loyalty that nobody asked you to perform. But there's a cost to this that builds quietly over time. Every time you do this, you're telling your own nervous system, "My feelings aren't safe to express here." And that message, repeated enough, starts to feel like a universal truth rather than a situational one. You begin to disconnect from your own emotional reality before you even get to the point of deciding whether to speak. You start editing yourself before you've opened your mouth. And that, slowly, becomes a kind of slow erasure of your own inner voice. Here's the beautiful contradiction at the center of all of this. People who go silent when they're hurt almost always look like they don't feel very much. But inside, they feel everything. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's overflow. It's the same reason rivers go underground. When the surface can't hold what it's carrying, it finds another way. Quieter, hidden, but still moving, still deep. You look detached, but you're the opposite. You're so engaged with your own emotional life that you're terrified of how it will land. Now, I want to be honest with you about something. This pattern can become a form of self-sabotage when it graduates from protection into avoidance. There's a difference between choosing silence as a strategic pause and defaulting to it because you've lost trust in the possibility of being heard. One keeps you safe, the other keeps you small. And the difference is whether you're still in contact with your own voice. Whether somewhere inside you there's still a part that believes your feelings matter and wants to find their way out. If that part has gone quiet too, that's worth paying attention to. Not as a problem to fix, but as a signal that something in your life needs recalibrating. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are someone whose internal world became sophisticated enough to protect itself. And that intelligence is remarkable, even when it's been turned against you. Learning to trust yourself again, to distinguish between what is safe to express and what you were taught to believe wasn't. That's the work. Not to stop going silent, but to eventually choose your silence. To make it yours, instead of it making you. Let me ask you this, and be honest with yourself. When you go quiet, are you trying to protect the relationship, or are you trying to survive it? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you found this one resonating, there's a related pattern I think you'll recognize. It's about what happens when you've learned to read the room so well that you've forgotten how to be in it. I'll see you there.